I was wondering though, you wanted to talk about our kind of uh maybe mystical experiences or things. Did have you had any, or what do you think about that?
Yeah, I've had one that stands out pretty strongly. Um, I've had a few others that were not as strong. Um, it's interesting looking back on them to think about them. But I'm also interested in yours. I mean, a painful trip on mushrooms is definitely a thing. And you said you had a few other things there as well, so I'd love to hear about those. Um, and yeah, just something about the way you described the story had me really feel it viscerally, had me feel because he's shaking, so like his body,
Yeah,
his nervous system itself is there's something that's touching his nervous system,
yeah,
his body, his and then he's also having these emotions, so it's touching his emotional system, and then he's also he's thinking clearly, he's able to have conversations and form words, and there's some level of conscious understanding
yeah,
of I know what the mind being the mountains and the rivers and the stars and the moon. I understand that viscerally. I have
yeah.
so it's speaking through like all parts of his system.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and that I think is really powerful. Um, most of my sort of awkward, odd experiences are more emotional. Um, and there was only one that really hit me somewhat like this guy's. Um, and luckily I had somebody to go to with it too. But I was sitting at the monastery in New York. This was upstate New York, New York State. This was 2009. This was June 2009, and during a sesshin, which in Zen is I think it's like 7 to 10 days of meditation intensive experience. So you stay at the monastery, you get up at 5 o'clock, you meditate for an hour and a half. They do a little talk. You meditate for an hour and a half. You have breakfast. You meditate for an hour and a half. You get up and you do some cleaning. You clean the place. You meditate for an hour and a half. You have lunch. Except like it's the whole day up until like 8 or 9 o'clock, and then you go to bed and you're expected to get up again in the morning. And you do that like every day for a week or a little bit more. And so this was maybe my first one of those. I'm not sure. Um, but I was sitting and I remember a few things, and I don't know how they all fit together at this point. But I remember there being a strong burning in my right jaw, like something was working its way down.
Hmm.
Um, and then it hit some kind of resistance. There's like burning sensation, and it stopped and it got hotter and hotter, and then it like exploded and moved through, and I had the sense of just like, oh, like something had dropped away, not like him, not like the guy, but just like a little bit of a tension around my head had dropped away, and I was like, oh, like something felt clearer. I think that happened first earlier on in the day, and then later on towards the evening, um at dinner, I I was listening to a lot of Eckhart Tolle at the time, and one of his first books was Stillness Speaks. So I think I was listening to that, and oh, this whole thing is in silence. So there's no talking, there's no even any eye contact. You're supposed to kind of keep your attention withdrawn in yourself.
Hmm.
Um, and so indeed, I'm at dinner, but I'm sitting there just by myself, and it sort of pops into my head like, oh, Stillness Speaks, and like, what would it say? And then I hear this voice say, "Watch me." And I'm like, what? And then I feel something in the right side of my brain, like right up here. Like it feels like this box opens, like the lid, like a jack in the box. This box opens and another box pops out of it, but that box is bigger than the first one.
Hmm.
And then that opens and like more, and it just sort of builds and builds and bubbles out of my head.
Hmm.
And I'm like, what the fuck? And this urgency runs up through my body, and like I have to leave, I have to go. So I run out the door, the back of the dining hall, and up the hill, and I go to the graveyard that's on the monastery grounds, which I had spent some time sitting in the day or two before. It's for When the monastics pass, they bury them up there, or community members too, I suppose. And I go up there, and I'm sitting in the graveyard, and I have this like something big shifts, and like all of a sudden my experience becomes from my solar plexus like this expanding sphere. So like I don't know if you remember the old oh, what are they called? The screensavers. Like it would start with like a color in the middle, and then another color would appear, and the first color would kind of expand outwards, and
Hmm.
then another one that would expand outwards. So it's just
Hmm.
like these pixels of color expanding.
Hmm.
And then every ring would be the same color. And so a new color would come and it would kind of grow that way. It
Hmm.
felt like that, like there were these micro thin layers expanding from my solar plexus, and
Hmm.
each layer was like that's what reality was made of. It was just these layers expanding, and it included what I normally think of as myself and what I think of as the world, like in the layers at the same time. And I just sort of I sat there with that and experienced that, and then it faded, and I came back to like normal consciousness, and my response was was not, oh, the Buddhas and patriarchs have told me the truth. I turned my head up to God and I said, well, you can't take that away from me, which I think speaks more to my psychology than anything else. But that was my honest response in that moment. Um, and I went back inside. And I talked to the one of the teachers. There were two guys helping hold the sesshin. So
Hmm.
I was able to meet with one of them. They had like face to face during the day. So I went in to meet with him. And I told him what happened. And he was like, "Hey, yeah, congratulations. Like you're on the path now. Um, what you don't want to do is reach out and grab. Well, he didn't say the path. He said you're on the ride. You're on the roller coaster.
Hmm.
The first thing the last thing you want to do is reach out and grab the first signpost that goes by and hold on to it." And I was like, okay, yeah,
That sounds good.
yeah. So I didn't think about it for a long time, but the memory of it, of that experience stuck with me. And then I recently came across some journals that I had kept at that time. And I kept a journal of like the day before what had happened and the day after, and I had just left out the middle part because I was like, I don't want to grab the signpost.
Hmm.
Um, but it has stuck with me since then. So now I can tell it as a story of like such things are possible. They happen. Um, it was one of the first big things that sort of started a series of other weird experiences in my life that eventually had me move out to Portland. And I'm met with the shaman that I work with. Like it just everything just sort of went pretty crazy from there. But it did show me that there's something to this life that is more important and stronger than what I can control. And that it's not something I can surrender. I can abdicate my responsibility to. I can't just be like, okay, like enlighten me. You're bigger than me anyway. Like I still have to show up, but the thing that comes does not come from me. Not what I normally think of as me. And I don't really have to worry about it as much. Is kind of what I think I would say what that left me with is just like, well, I didn't plan that. I didn't think it was going to happen. My only part in the whole thing seemed to be doing the practice. Um, and yet it wasn't doing the practice that had it happen. It was eating dinner. And just something popped into my head, and then it popped into my head and I listened to it, like I interacted with it. I didn't just brush it aside.
Yeah.
And yeah,
And you
yeah, yeah.
literally heard a voice, right?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, again, this was what, 16 years ago. So,
But
I can't, but that's the memory and the experience.